Guys, welcome to the track record. I'm here with Grissom, class of 2011, UAH class of 2016, Blaise Binns. In high school, he was a 421 miler, 1527 5K guy. In college, he was the 2012 D2 South Regional champ in cross country, and he had 10 PRs of 151 in the 800, all the way up to 31:39 in the 10K. Dude's got range, and he's got a lot of stories to tell. So Blaise, thanks for the time.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to my house.
Thanks for inviting me.
We also have mics today, so I'm super excited about that. So we hope this works. Let's take it all the way back. Start with the journey into running and how you got into it, how it kind of became your passion, things like that.
So for me, let's see, like you might know this, like there was a race here for like young kids always. They still have it. Huntsville Hospital hosted it, the Autumn Chase.
Yeah, I ran that,
Yeah, so 1998, I'm a kindergartner and my mom's like, hey, let's run Autumn Chase.
Yeah.
And she's gonna run with me.
Okay.
And my younger brother, who's like 2 years younger than me. So he's just like a little kid. He's like, oh, let's run, it'll be fun.
Right.
And so gun goes off and I'm just like any kid, like you just sprint.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
I sprint and she's like, hold up. And right before the race starts, she tells me, she's like, just don't sprint off. All the kids are going to do this. And I'm like, you're a little kid. You're 6. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't help it. I go off and I end up not dying as much as every other kid and I win.
Yeah.
And we go back and we do that race every year.
Wait, what was your time? Do you know?
I want to say it was like 8:19 or something like that.
That's our starting point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I run the race all the way until I was in 8th grade and I won every single year.
Yeah.
And that just kind of got me into like, oh, I think I'm fast and I kind of like this winning thing.
Yeah, I think I actually won one of those, so I think that's wrong. I think your stats are wrong.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so go from there. Go from Autumn Chase to running at Grissom.
Autumn Chase, running at Grissom. So I'll go like a little in between that. So Autumn Chase, my mom is the only real runner in my family.
Okay.
I played kind of all sports growing up and never really trained running. And I watched my older brother run. He's about 4 years older than me. So I went to Mountain Gap Middle School. And in middle school, it was like a big deal, like first time running track in my life in middle school.
Yeah.
And our middle school, we didn't train. We just ran our event for practice. And so I'd run the mile and I'd run the 800. And sometimes I'd get to run the 400. But you'd run both of those things every day. So I just pretty much practiced racing. And I was pretty good. I won city as a 7th grader, then won city as an 8th grader. In 7th grade, I ran some Grissom races though, some high school races, JV.
Okay.
Because my mom was the assistant coach there. So I raced a couple like 2.1 mile races. I think like Chickasaw and Jesse Owens kind of got me that introduction into cross country. 8th grade, I ran and actually like won some races in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So that was pretty awesome. And then 9th grade comes along and I'm like, okay, now we're really gonna run. I actually like trained to run, but I went to Grissom, and if anybody knows Grissom, then like they don't do real mileage, I'd say. So I thought I was running like training really well. I think like a lot of high schoolers, we were doing almost nothing, but I ended up that freshman year going from like a 455 miler as an 8th grader to a 427 miler.
Wow.
My freshman year. I never had run a 5K before until that 9th grade year. And I think the first 5K I ran was 16:50 like 4 at Scottsboro. And my coach only let me run 3 5Ks that year. So I ran Scottsboro sectionals, which is at like a Bob Jones, like a crappy
the old Bob Jones.
Yeah. I can't remember, like 16:40, and then at state I ran 16:19. So that kind of just got me into it, and then I was just all in from there.
Right.
With the goal always to be a state champion.
Yeah.
Like I watched my older brother, who's 4 years older than me, run, and I would just see state cross country, and I was like, man, this is awesome. Like cross country, you can't beat that. You got all these kids there, and there's only one winner. You know, there's one winner, and so that was always my goal.
Right.
And that's what I just strive for that whole time. I got injured my junior year, hurt my Achilles pretty bad early in the season, and ended up not getting to race at state. And then come around senior year, I race and uh, not the best time.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about state senior year, right? You come in as the favorite,
Hmm.
and I think it's pretty known that you're the favorite across the
Yeah.
board. And you end up losing to my former teammate Brandon
Brandon
Missouri, a
Missouri,
guy from Mountain Brook got second, and
very fast.
yeah, and I think they said I was reading that Coach Zelwak told Brandon hang with him, right, because he's gonna go out fast,
Yeah.
right. So talk through that race because you did go out fast, and Brandon overtook you with like 1,000 to go, I believe, and
Yeah.
ran what he said was the race of his life. So talk about that
No,
race
not the
and
race
deal
of
with
his
that.
life.
No, not at all. At the
I don't think
time,
today he would say
at the
that.
time, it might have been the race of his
Yeah,
life.
maybe. I mean, he was a sophomore, right?
Yep.
No, junior. Because there was a
1 year
guy
below.
named Peyton Ballard who
Uh-huh.
was at Mountain Brook, who also he got I think second, and
Okay.
he was a sophomore.
Yeah.
He's kind of rising star. But yeah, I'll go with that race. So leading up to that, I was winning everything,
Yeah.
and like I said before, my junior year, I raced two races. One at Brooks Invitational. Um, it's in Florence, and I ran 15:44, first race this season. Super hot.
Mm-hmm.
And then next race was Chickasaw. I ran and I was injured and get second place. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna be. This is
Yeah.
my year. Like you
Yeah.
started off 15:44. I got injured thinking like, all right, I'll bounce back. Like
Yeah.
your first injury, you think you're Superman when you're like runner in high school. You
Right.
think you can never get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was my mindset. And I didn't bounce back from that. I couldn't make it. I had to take a long time off. I had a stretch fracture in my heel also.
Mm.
But that year, the winner of state ran 15:50.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
if
That's
you
pretty
think about
slow.
today, like
That's
kids would be like, "Oh, I win state for sure." Like
yeah. I don't
every
know.
kid.
That's probably like top 25, maybe at
Yeah.
15:50. So
No,
yeah.
no, it's not fast.
Yeah.
But I saw that and I was like, "Oh, I could have won state if I wasn't healthy." So I'm like, next year I'm winning state.
Yeah.
Senior year, it's the last go around. Um, like you said, I was winning everything. So I was so confident going in that race.
Mm-hmm.
And my mindset, which is, I was so naive a runner. I was a really stupid, naive runner. I think you need a little bit of that, but I think I had a little too much of that.
Yeah.
And that's where the downfall happens in this race is I'm thinking like, I don't want to win this race. I want to dominate.
Yeah.
And I go out in 4:37. I was running probably like 30, 35 miles a week.
Mm-hmm.
So to go out in 4:37, that's like, I mean, what is that, 14:30,
Yeah. It's
5K
quick.
pace?
Yeah.
There's no reason I was not a 14:30 5K. Like that's stupid.
Yeah.
So you can imagine like you're gonna struggle. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to say I went through the 2 miles. I didn't fall off too bad until that last mile. I went through 2 miles like 9:20 something.
Wow.
So those switchbacks and everything. But
Yeah.
right after that, you're going down those switchbacks. I died
Yeah.
like hard. I kind of got to this point where I've never been like that in a race after that, where like I felt like a zombie. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
just running,
Yep.
and there was one point where a lady pushed me back onto the course.
Oh gosh.
Because I was like veering off
Yeah.
because I was so out of it, and she's like, "No, this way." This is like after Brandon has passed me,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
like you get past, then you're like, it's over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't just get like, it's not like he just caught up to me and like he was running with me. He was
Yeah.
like
Right.
gone.
Yeah.
And you can't react when you're just dead.
Right.
Yeah, that was a bad race, and I ended up running 16:04,
Mm-hmm.
I think, that day. And the worst part is like there was a video. You can look this up. It's probably still there. My teammates in college would make fun of me all the time for this on YouTube. It's like 20 seconds long, and it's like it says like state like leader gets like dropped or something. I can't
That's
remember.
tough.
And it's just Brandon Hazari like
Yeah.
just passing me,
Yeah.
and it's like, let's go, Brandon, get him.
Oh man.
And I was like, ah, man. For the longest, I was like, that race just killed me. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like just upset. Go home, shut all the doors. I'm like crying. I'm just like, oh. But you learn a lot from that,
For
right?
sure.
Like you learned a lot, but that was just me being a stupid runner.
Yeah.
Really.
But I think I would venture to say that fueled outdoor track in as a senior, right?
For sure.
Outdoor track. You lost one race in outdoor track, and that was the 800 at state. but every other race you won, and you PR'd with 4:21, claiming your first title. So talk about maybe the transition into outdoor season
Yeah.
and how
So
that fueled you a little bit.
I thought of that. I always was like kind of a very like mental, really loved the mental side of the psychological side of running. So I thought about that loss like every day.
Yeah.
Every day. I was like, I'm gonna win state.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna win, and it is specifically the 1600 because I didn't see myself as a 800 runner, and I didn't even run the 2 mile.
Right.
Like it was kind of
I
stupid.
think your 1-2 mile was like 10:14. Is that at Austin Invitational or
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
And the only reason I did that is because my coach, Coach David Yates, said, if you run the 800, the 1600, and the 2 mile this day, I will let you race at Mountain Brook. And I was a senior and I wanted to go do like spring break for the first time ever.
Yeah.
He's like, well, the only way you can do that is if you run the 2 mile. And so I was like, all right, I'll run the 2 mile. And I sat and kicked and ran 10:14. I don't know. That's good. But so going into that, training wise, every day I'm thinking like, let's not lose. Like you got embarrassed. I really felt embarrassed. So I was like, let's just not lose. Like, hey, you won so much in your career. Let's end it on a high note. And it was kind of a weird year. And I tell another like local runner, Jacob Fuller, who you might know. He was wearing for Huntsville High School, and so weird year in saying that I want to say the swine flu happened that year.
Okay.
So our sectionals was like, and 4 days after sectionals was, actually it wasn't swine flu. It was the tornado. It was the tornadoes in 2010.
2010, yeah.
2011. You're
11,
right.
yeah.
2011.
Yep.
So those tornadoes just ravaged North Alabama,
Right,
essentially.
right.
And we were out of school for a week, I think. And they had to reschedule sectionals because they hadn't done sectionals yet, and those tornadoes hit. So our sectionals, we raced, and then 4 days later was state.
Dang.
And it was kind of windy still.
Yeah.
So all of the runners at sectionals came together and were like, hey, like we're about to run at state. Like let's try to help each other out.
Yeah.
Which is really stupid.
Yeah.
Because
were you for it or against it then?
I was all about it because I'm a sit and kick guy.
Yeah,
like that is what my bread and butter as a runner. Sit and kick. I loved it. I grew up watching Bernard Lagat. Nick Simmons was a huge fan back then, and that's what he did. So that's what I was like modeling my racing after. And so these guys all say, yeah, we're gonna sit, and they know that I had a better kick than them, and I was a more talented runner.
Right.
I sat and kicked and won in 450 something a mile.
Wow.
So, but you had to win to make the fast heat. So that's why it was stupid and kind of risky move.
Was that the qualifying system then? That you have to win to hit the.
Because you couldn't just like to qualify for the fast heat.
Okay.
Like if you ran if they let's say like 455 got second, he'd be then in the slower heat because you'd have all these others.
Oh wow, that's different than it is now.
Yeah. So it was a stupid thought by everybody, but I was looking at my chops.
Yeah, I'll take this.
So I got an easy win, got to relax. So I go into state, and there's one guy who I was like, this is my like arch nemesis.
Who is that?
And it's always like I just like, and if anybody's watching this was just like a North Alabama, like a Huntsville hate because they were always so good.
Yeah.
I always was like, man, Mountain Brook's so good, but obviously Hoover, they're so good. I watched Pat McGregor my whole high school career dominate everybody.
Right.
And then there was this other guy coming up, Brian Probst.
Okay.
You know, Brian Probst. You might have heard of his dad.
There's no bad blood now.
No bad blood now. Yeah. And he knows this too. Like when it came to state, we're the same grade. Our sophomore years, we were like fighting to try to get a podium spot. We kind of ran the same way, sit and kick guys.
Yeah. And
so we came to state. I was like, this is the guy. If I want to win state, I have to beat Brian Probst. And before the race, like I was pretty cocky runner, but he is more cocky than me. And he was like, what are we running today?
Oh, what?
And I was like, state, they corral you. I don't know if they still do this, but you're in that like holding area.
Yep.
This is the most nerve-wracking like time, like to just sit in the heat in Gulf Shores in this holding area.
You also don't want to talk to anybody.
No, you don't want to talk. So especially if some other guy from Hoover,
of course,
is coming up to me and he's like, "Oh, what are we running today?" I'm gonna be like, "Oh God, I gotta beat this guy. And I'm like 420.
Yeah.
Right. I think he'd run faster than that season. And I had run 424 was the fastest I'd run at that point. And the race was perfect for me.
Yeah.
Like we went out, he went and led it, which he doesn't normally lead races. And I just went behind, tucked behind. And I actually was in like 4th place with like 400 to go, but I still felt really good and just had a big surge, finished really strong. And like, it's one of those like 50 meters to go, you're just catching everybody so fast. It's the best feeling. The best feeling, I tell everybody, is winning a race. It doesn't matter if it's a big race or small race.
Yep.
To win one race is the best.
Yeah.
And you just passed everybody. I got that win, and it was a relief.
Yeah.
Huge relief.
Do you think your 420 statement played a role with him taking the lead early? And like, do you think that messed with him, that you countered his confidence with confidence right back?
God, man, this kid was. I don't think so, only because he's so like it's just over. Like he was very confident. He was a good runner, really good runner.
Right.
I don't know. I wasn't thinking that. I was so nervous. I was just, there's so much. This is my last go. And honestly, I think because I won that, I didn't do good in the 800. I was really complacent in the race
because you had gotten what you wanted.
Yeah, because I felt like, oh, I won state.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna race this other one. Like I put so much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And you know, the guy who won that year was a guy who ended up going to Florida, a really good runner.
Yeah.
Like he ran an awesome race that day too. I mean, like props to him. He was a beast, and his career was, I think he might have ran like 151.
Wow.
By his senior year. He was a sophomore, and he won in the 800. But I always thought, man, I kind of was complacent in that race, but because I won the mile at 1600, you're just like,
I got what I wanted.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to college, right? You choose to stay here, run at UAH. Before deciding on UAH, did you have any schools that talked to you that you were looking at, and kind of how you ended up at UAH?
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about like the whole recruiting system.
Yeah.
And I think if there's any high school kid listening, like talk to people, reach out, like, and like feel free to reach out to me too, because I learned so much through this process. I did a lot of things wrong, and that's not me saying that like, oh, I regret going to UH, I loved going to UH, but I didn't have a coach that was going to help me in the process. My parents didn't know the way this process worked. I missed a lot of opportunities in that. Auburn recruiting, Samford, UNC Asheville, UNC Greensboro, Syracuse, which is a big like, which is a weird story. They wrote me a handwritten letter and sent it to my high school coach.
Okay.
Somehow, some reason he didn't get it to me until like May.
Dang.
I didn't actually, in UAH obviously, and I don't know. I wanted to. Again, I might have been really naive and stupid, but like I just thought that I was a 1527, 421, 156 guy, that I was good enough to go to like, and this happens to a lot of kids. I didn't know anything about coaching, but I wanted to go to Alabama. Like my dream school actually was Arkansas. They were like this school, but after like losing Cross, I was like, there's no way I'm getting to Arkansas.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, maybe I can go to Georgia. In my junior year, I sent all these, like all the stuff you're supposed to send out with nobody reaching out to me.
Right.
And so I'm thinking like, man, like, all right, let's see. Like I had these other schools, Auburn, and I talked to them, but I didn't really know how to talk to coaches that like, you should probably sell yourself if you're talking to them. And I didn't know anything about training. I think kids are way better at this nowadays. But coaches would call me on the phone and they'd be like, hey, what are you doing? What's your mileage? I didn't know what my mileage was. My coach said, go run 4 miles, go run 5 miles.
But you never added
it up.
Yeah.
And so, and we didn't do like workouts. It was easy run, which easy run meant like you ran probably pretty fast. We didn't have GPS watches, so I don't know how fast I was running. And then you did some interval stuff, but they would just probe you on how you were training. And I think a lot of times they were probably turned off by like me not really knowing that much on training. And so I took a visit at UNC Asheville, really liked it. Probably would have went there, but I'd already taken a visit at UH, and UNC Asheville was like, we'll give you $5,000. And then when I went on the visit there, already at 15, 27, 5K, I was like their top five. I was going to be in their top five. So
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
thought like, I felt disrespected by that.
Sure.
But when I went to UH, like, I'll just say this now because so much time has passed.
Right, right, right.
I go there and like Coach Kane opened, he wanted me.
Yeah.
That's my number one thing. I think that's what, if a high schooler is looking to what to do in like college, like you want to go to a coach who wants you and
Mhm.
is willing to take time.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about UH. Coach Kane, he came in, he wanted me. He'd seen me run. Obviously, I'm in Huntsville. He's UH's coach, so he'd heard
Mhm.
of me. And Coach Kane went to Grissom, and
Right.
he was coached by the same high school coach as me.
That's cool.
So he understood the training that I was going through. Kind of, I felt like he would know how to like progress me.
Right.
But he sits me down. You end every visit like this. You sit down with the head coach because you might not get a lot of time to talk to the head coach, especially if it's a bigger school. It's assistant coach. You sit down with the head coach. You're in his office one on one. My parents weren't with me, and you talk. This is what they can offer scholarship wise, right? And Coach Kane, the way he did it, which was I think cool. He's like, all right, this is what we can offer. I really want you. He writes down on a sticky note the number, and he's like, this is it. And I look at it, and he's like, this is everything but books.
Wow.
And it's like, I think at that time UH was like maybe like $15,000 or
Sure.
something.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, I'm trying to like play my cards right, like not like have
Poker
any
face a little bit.
emotion. And
Yeah.
so I'm just like, yeah, okay. Well, let me talk to my parents, and like I liked it here. I'll reach back out to you. I still was like waiting for somebody else to like come back with like more money,
Yeah.
but like to me, I just felt like there's no reason. If somebody's gonna offer that and he really wanted me, like it'd be stupid of me to
Yeah.
go on
Yeah.
somewhere else. So
That's
on to
cool.
UH.
That's really cool to be wanted that way. So, and we can probably talk UAH stories all day. We'll probably do a
Getting
second
mad.
episode with Blaise because Blaise has a lot of stories. But let's talk about a few things. You had a ton of injuries in
Mhm.
college, right?
Mhm.
You had several good high spots as well. We're gonna start with the high spots. We'll get to the injuries. But 2012? Yeah, 2012. You're the D2 South Region cross country champ here in Sharon Johnson, right?
Sharon Johnson.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
and then that qualifies you and the team for nationals. So talk through that race, and then also talk about kind of the performance at nationals and how, you win here and then you finish 200 something
I
there.
think I finished like 20th, 22nd to last.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like something like
So
you
talk
won't
about,
forget.
we go from the highs kind of to the low.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Actually, the first nationals was I was a freshman, and
okay.
the team won regionals, and we were in Spokane, Washington. It snowed 6 inches. It was 6 inches of snow on the ground. It was actively snowing a lot. It's 24 degrees outside.
Oh gosh.
It was terrible.
Were you prepared at all for that?
Oh no! So here's the story. Like the female race before us, and I'm watching, and I don't really realize what's actually going down, but they're in just like beanies and gloves,
Yeah.
and like some of them have like Under Armour like long sleeves on, but their legs there's nothing covered.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So that's what I decide. I have gloves on. I put gloves on, a beanie, and like a long sleeve,
Yep.
and I keep no tights or anything. But in Alabama, we weren't training in cold
No,
in that
don't have
time
that at
frame.
all. Yeah.
It was a shock. Like when you take off your sweats, like nationals is pretty cool cross country. Like D2, um, you get these like you take everything off right at the line, and they send it off to somewhere else. Somebody takes it, and it's go time. I was just like shocked, freezing cold, whatever. Dude, run terrible. That's my first.
Yeah.
So what you were talking about, my sophomore year,
Mm-hmm.
I win regionals. I'm thinking the goal is to be an All-American.
Yeah.
You win regionals, you're thinking you're going to be an All-American.
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
40 people are All-American.
Right.
And if you're
surely I can be in the top 40.
What is there, like 6 regions or something? I don't
that,
know.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you should be in top 40.
Right.
So nationals that year, I'm in really good shape.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good shape. I run 31:39. Beat this Kenyan who beat me the year before. Outkicked him. At Sharon Johnson's not an easy course. There's a big hill there. I felt like I was ready to roll.
Yeah.
Day before the meet, I get a stomach virus or food poisoning. I
Okay.
think food poisoning. I'm in the hotel. I don't get to go to the banquets and stuff. I'm in the hotel just like puking my guts out.
Mm.
Like the worst sickness I've ever
Yeah.
had.
Flu game. Michael Jordan flu
Yeah.
game.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking in my mind,
Yeah.
like, I love sports. I'm like, you can still bounce back, Blaise. You
Yeah.
can still do this.
Yeah. Of
So my coach in the morning is like, do you want to race or not? Like,
course I
or
would.
do you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel so weak. I just like the whole night, just like emptying everything out of me. I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like, I'll race. I'm gonna race. For some reason I thought I could still do it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Don't even be naive. Like if you are depleted, you're of like all your nutrition, you're gonna run terrible. So that's what happened that race. I had nothing.
Yeah.
I felt like I was jogging. I was trying. I think around like 35, 20. Actually, no,
It doesn't matter.
I ran 34 something.
Yeah,
But
it
that
was
course
34.
is
Yeah.
pretty short,
Okay.
so it was probably like a 35 effort. But
Sure.
yeah, it was another like disappointing race for me. I
Right.
thought like, oh man, the big stage, you did it again.
Right.
You lost it.
To rebuttal that though, this is the most admirable thing I think. I try to pride myself on being a team player, right?
Yeah.
So stepping up for your team that no, I don't have it today, but I'm still going to show up for you guys. Like, so to your
Yeah.
credit, that's the best thing you could have done, the right thing you could have done. So
Thanks.
yeah. Then let's talk about 2013 Peach Belt Conference Championship at was it in Rome, Georgia, I think.
Rome, Georgia, yes.
You pulled off in a 2-day format the quadruple.
Mm-hmm.
800, you were second, 156. 1500, fourth, and 358. 5,000, second, and 1512. 10,000, fourth, and 3139. And at 10,000, you lost to a guy named Pardon. Don't know his last name. Can't say his last name. But 2 weeks later, he runs 2904. Right.
Yeah.
So he is
we knew he was good.
He's
too,
really good.
That. Yes.
But in 2 days, 2 fourth places, 2 second places. Talk through that weekend,
Yeah.
and the team won by 4 points. So whether or not it's the smartest decision to run 4 events in one conference, you pulled it off and the team won. So there was the benefit there. But yeah, talk through that weekend.
So that starts actually in that cross country season.
Mm-hmm.
I told my coach if I'm healthy, because we knew that was the first year that UH was going to get to go to a track conference championship. We were in the GSC or no Peach Belt.
Yeah.
And it was year one. I was like, man, we got to win. I think we should win it. Like, let's do it. And I told Coach Kane, I was like, if I'm healthy, I want to try to run 4 events. We don't know what the schedule is going to be at this time.
Yeah.
And through that track season, I'm healthy. And so I think leading up, me and him sit down and we look at the schedule events.
Yeah.
Schedule events is way different than it is today.
It's a 3-day meet now. UH's conference. Yeah.
And this is again like just a naive runner. Like I don't know. I just think I can do more than I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it got me into trouble, but I think it also helped me a lot in training. I sit down with him and we're like, all right, looks like Friday night is the 10K and steeplechase. I'm not a steeplechase runner.
Yeah.
So let's throw that out. But I was like, 10K? All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
At that time, you didn't have to race like another 10K to get in to the meet. So I could just get into the 10K without racing one at all. So we decided, let's go 10K that at night. And then the problem was Friday. Friday, it's like 1,500. And then 45 minutes later, you run the 800. 45 minutes later, you run the 5K.
Oh my god.
Thing is, I wanted to run the 4x4 too.
Yeah.
We had a 4x4 runner who was hurt.
Right? Yeah.
It was after the 5K.
Yeah, you could have technically. Yeah.
If you asked me then, I'd have been like, yeah, I could run it.
Yeah.
Today, I'm like, there's no way. Stupid. But that's where it all started, and it was because we were like, I wanted to make sure our team won. And the crazy thing is that they didn't have scores done yet because they had shorter Rome, Georgia, their throwing facility. I don't know if you've been there. It's like you had to charter, like take a bus to get there.
Yeah.
So nobody really knew what was going on over there.
Yeah.
And we had pretty good throwers. one of my teammates and roommates, shout out to Will Lester, he was doing really well there, and he knew what the score was. And so everybody gets down together, and they're like, you know, you're waiting with your team. And I never had won a track anything as a team. I went to Grissom. We had a terrible team. I was like one of the few people to make it to state all the time, and I was like, man, I want this to happen. And they're just like saying like, you're waiting for runner up, right? You don't want to hear your name runner up.
Right.
It's like runner up, shorter, and everybody goes crazy. We won by 4 points. It was the best. But 4 events isn't the smartest thing to do.
Right.
That just like took a lot out of me. I had run 151 that season at Ole Miss, and 2 weeks later we run at Clemson. I run the hardest rate. Like, I feel like I'm running so hard. I think I run like 156 flat.
I think so. Yeah.
But it was worth it.
With that, were you fatigued or were you injured afterwards?
It wasn't injury. I was nursing an injury at that time, but I don't think that race that day was because of that.
Yeah.
I was able to race again at Georgia Tech, a lot more fresh. And then end up like lowering that 151. But the goal was to make it to nationals, and I ran 151.23, and the 20th top 20 make it was 151.04.
Dang.
And I had an injury at the time. I had a hernia and a sports hernia. After that season, I had surgery, but barely missed it.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to talk about, you mentioned a couple of injuries as we've gotten to this point. What within you, well, first I'll maybe talk about some of those injuries. You mentioned the sports hernia, the stress fracture in your heel. What are some of those injuries, and what keeps bringing you back? Because I was talking to, we won't say who I was talking to, but they were saying what is impressive about you is how you do keep coming back to it. And did at the time, at least.
I love racing. And I am a long-term goal guy. I think that's great for runners. It's a slow process to get better at running, right? So you got to think long-term. And long-term was All-American. I hadn't done that, and there's a lot of goals I hadn't reached. And I really thought I had a good skill base that if I can go to nationals or if I can run this time, I thought at that time 147.5 would get you to the trials. And always in my mind, I was like, if I can run 147.5, I could go to the trials. Like, that is the ultimate goal. Go to the trials, and if you go to the trials, anything can happen.
Right.
So that was in my mind all the time. Like coming back from injuries, like, man, come on, we haven't done this yet. So freshman year in cross country at tear my calf muscle, out for 5 months, bounce back, have it amazing. That's when I win regionals in cross country, and then run that quadruple in track. Then I get hurt, have that sports hernia. That didn't take too long to get back, but it definitely affects you. And then I had the big injury that following year. I run cross country and I'm fine. And then in track, I hurt my hamstring. I had bad hamstring tear. And that kind of catapulted me down. And I was always just like a sit and kick guy, a real good speed guy. Had a good base too. But with that hamstring, it was hard to come back from. And I was working really hard. And then ultimately I tore my labrum in my hip, had surgery, and that's you're non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. I just missed a lot of time. I think it took me like really 2 years to get back to training it. But luckily to just a guy I call a friend now, Coach Kane, he kept me on the team as more of a leadership role. And I still was on the team, and I ran one last year as like a super senior, everybody, like 6-year senior. And I wasn't fast. I think I scored 1 point at conference. So it was a huge change into my career, but it really taught me like about leadership. That year I learned so much just outside of running, but like how to help other people on the team, not to be like focused only on myself. But yeah, the injuries, it was tough, but it was just those long-term goals of trying to get there, just in my mind.
I want to touch on the leadership thing in a second, but give you a chance first. What made you special as a runner?
I think probably a lot of it comes back to one, I'll say like I was naturally talented.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
There's that. You can't
No
deny
hiding it.
if
Yeah.
somebody's naturally talented. Everybody wants to say like I just worked so hard for all this. Like,
Yeah.
God, that's how I became fast. But I started off, it was a little bit easier for me. But I think I got a lot of like good work ethic from my dad and my mom.
Yeah.
My dad, every day he woke up 4:30 in the morning, worked out, still sweating, take me and my brothers to school, come home like 5, 6 o'clock, repeat, do that for my whole life.
Yeah.
Right. So I saw him work really hard. My brothers pushed me really hard. So like just working hard was a huge thing to me. And I think that's what helped me become a good runner. I never missed runs. Like when I was in college, I never missed run unless I was hurt.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna run later and then I didn't run.
Yeah.
Right. Like I ran all of them because I wanted to be good and I thought that's what you do.
Yeah.
I just thought and mentally I don't know. It was back to that naive part.
Yeah.
I thought had a special talent and I was like, I don't know. It kind of like tricked myself into thinking I was faster than I was.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely good and a healthy amount too.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't say this. I'm going to read what was said about you by one of your former teammates, and it speaks exactly what you just said. So he said, a lot of people looked at Blaise and just called him talented, and sure, he was a high responder to aerobic stimulus with great racing instincts and could shift gears really well. But to just leave it at talented is underselling his focus in practice, his intensity in racing, and his consistent practice of gritty details in order to capitalize when it came for competition.
That's high praise.
Yeah, exactly. So it's exactly what you said. You know, that you're talented, yes, but so much of it comes down to the hard work and the dedication. I also, you didn't touch on it, but well, maybe you did with the naivety, being naive. But talk about your race instincts. I was, as prepping for this, just talking to people, and they said you're the best racer that they've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, and I'll read this one as well. Blaise is one of the most competitive guys I've ever met. I think his mindset is second to none, and his ability to believe in himself and his goals is scary in a good way. If Blaise decides he's going to win or stay with this guy who's regularly beating him, you're a fool to bet against him. So, talk about, maybe elaborate more on this natural, it seems to be natural, a natural gift of you just want to race people. Your Twitter profile says, I just want to win, right? And it said that for a long time. So just elaborate on that.
No, I mean, I think, yeah, just want to win. That like kind of speaks it in like the smallest like.
Yeah.
I never liked running, right? I didn't like running. I liked racing and I liked winning.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I started running, is because I love the praise that my family and friends like I got through winning.
Yeah.
And so I wanted, you taste a little bit of that. It's like that high. Like I want that.
Yeah.
So some of it I'll go back even further is I watched my brother race and he was always getting outkicked. He was always losing.
Yeah.
I always said I'm not gonna let that happen to me.
Right.
So I try to model my running off of like guys who had like great kicks. You know, I watched a lot of Legat, you know, Nick Simmons. I know it's controversial. He's still a 142,
just a punk. That's all he is.
800 runner. And David Waddle. I watched that a million times. His Olympic 1976 Montreal. David Waddle got the hat on. And I think about races a lot. Like leading up, I would think about the race like every day, all the time. I'm going through every moment of the race. What's going to happen? Like, let's say even in high school, I would be like, okay, what if you get tripped at the beginning of the race? What if today you just like don't feel good? What if the first lap you get boxed in? What if in the second lap? What if you do this? I tried to go through, and I think like a lot of that self-visualization helps a lot. Me just like thinking back on, oh, what did you do? Why did you do a good job at this? A lot of that came down to self-visualization, and I feel like I could see myself succeeding in a lot of that. And me seeing myself succeed, I felt like it was easier to actually do it once you do it. and I would practice racing. I think I would talk to a lot of the younger runners on the team once I was older, and like, these first couple of races, especially in cross country, these are they're practices, but they're races.
Right.
So let's figure out how the best way for you to run fast is.
Yeah.
And I would do that with myself. I would had times where I'd say, all right, I'm gonna try to run a 440, go out, and because everybody at nationals runs fast first mile.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't run a fast first mile, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Most of those courses aren't very wide in cross country, so like you just can't zoom past everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I think that visualization, and I just love racing.
Yeah.
Like, God, you just get this feeling. It's something, I don't know. Like, I think like any like fast person knows what I'm talking about, or
Yeah.
anybody who's won a race. Like, it's just a second gear.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I just had something else. I don't know.
Do you miss that? Like, is that what you would you say if you miss one thing the most, that it's the feeling of racing?
Yeah, I mean, God, you know how it is.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I raced you at Auburn, and you ran the 5K.
That's
When
right. You're
you
right.
won
Yeah.
the 5K,
That's right.
I think you ran like 14:40.
14:09. 14:49.
Yeah, so I
I
remember.
forgot you ran that
I
race.
remember
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
running.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
That's cool.
that feeling, right? Like,
Yes.
you just like,
Unbelievable feeling.
you
Yeah.
feel light and fast, and
Yeah.
just like, it's the best. And
Mm-hmm.
and to come across that line, one, to start on that line,
Yep.
you look next, everybody's goal is the same.
Yep.
To win.
Yeah.
To be first.
Yep.
And when you cross that line to end, and you're the guy who ends up with that same thought everybody has,
Yeah.
you do that, it's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I miss. That I talk to my wife all the time. I'm like, oh, I wish people could have this feeling to win these, because like it's such a good
It's
feeling. I
addicting.
miss
Yeah.
it.
It's addicting.
It doesn't last forever, and as you get older,
Yeah.
you know.
Now, to speak to the lower runner,
Mhm.
right? I think that feeling is still created in PRs,
For
right?
sure.
There
Yes.
is, if the best feeling is winning, the second best feeling is improving on the day.
Yes.
Especially like course to course. Like if you run in Chickasaw, you come at Jesse Owens, and then you come back to state and you're improving. Yeah, there's nothing like that feeling as
Yeah.
well.
And I think like that's where I always say like long-term goals are super important.
Mhm.
Long-term and short-term. You
Yep.
set your goals. If you hit that, that's a win.
Yeah.
Like that is a win. It doesn't matter if you didn't like beat everybody in competition. Like,
Right.
but ultimately you're getting faster, and
Mhm.
there's a good shot that you're gonna be number one
Yeah.
if you keep up with that same mindset.
Yeah. Well, you've touched on some what ifs, but looking back, what was your greatest joy in over your career?
Greatest joy. There's a couple moments that are like
Yeah, I'll take a couple of them. Yeah.
like like when I won regionals. It was at home meet, like at our home course.
Yep.
My family was there. I had family from all over that came to watch me race, and I was racing against this guy, Moses Karui.
Yep. Yep.
He was from Florida Southern, this Kenyan, and he was awesome. He
Yeah.
killed me the year before. And so I outkicked him at the very end. I just knew that course. And to win that was just, it was a great feeling.
Yeah.
State, high school.
Yeah.
I mean, state, that's something I dreamt of since I was young. I
Mhm.
wanted to win state.
Yeah.
I mean, I only got one, but one's enough to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
that feeling.
Honestly.
I'd say those are two huge. And then what we talked about earlier, that team,
Mhm.
that first one, because
Yeah.
we won a couple. I was lucky enough to be a part of 5 conference championship teams at UH.
Okay.
But that first one in track was just, it was an awesome feeling.
Yeah.
It was just such a total team effort. Like
Yeah.
everybody came together and had a good day.
And it's fun. I didn't ever get this, but we won in college at
Mhm.
Samford. We won a SoCon championship, and I didn't score. I raced, but I didn't
Yeah.
score, and it doesn't feel the same.
Uh-huh.
And you tell me, you played a role in the team. No, it doesn't feel the same.
Everybody's like, oh, well, you beat him, so he didn't score.
Right.
So you in
No,
turn
yeah,
scored.
it doesn't work. But to
Yeah.
be a part of the team, 24 points in that 2013 championship, like, yeah, it's got to feel really good. I had a really good question, but I lost it, and that's okay. What do you do now? Like, what career-wise, what are you doing right
Yeah,
now?
career-wise, I'm working in medical sales. I work for a spine company, so I am the guy that's in the OR,
Mhm.
just kind of helping the team. My role is with anything like instrumental, all the implants
Okay.
could use from like the base of the skull down to your pelvis,
Yeah.
essentially.
Does that stem at all from your injuries? Like
Uh,
maybe.
kind of getting into that stems from it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a physical therapist, and that stemmed from injuries. I
For
was doing a
sure.
lot of
Yeah.
physical therapy,
Right.
and I thought physical therapy is really cool. I'd been injured, and these
Yeah.
people helped me. Um, but I did not want to take the loans to go to PT
For
school,
sure. For sure.
and so I kind of pivoted into that. So kind of it got into there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a little different field.
Yeah. Well, you've dropped a lot of knowledge today. So will we ever see you coach? Do you ever have an
Coach.
interest in high school
Yeah.
coaching, college coaching?
Yeah. I would love to coach. Like I not college, but high school I for sure would want to coach. I think there's so much opportunity in high school, not only with like running itself, but
Mm-hmm.
to be able, and I think running in general is one of the best sports to help teach so many life lessons.
Yeah.
Everybody loses in running.
Yep.
Everybody's gonna lose. I've lost countless of times.
Yeah.
You learn how to lose. You learn hardships. You just learn how to navigate so many different scenarios. And at that young age in high school, I think like to be a coach, you're lucky
Mm-hmm.
that you get to be that person for so many like athletes.
Yeah.
I want to get to do that. I definitely do. I've talks and thought about getting into it, but right now with my schedule, it'd be so hard. But you'll for sure see me in some point.
Okay. Okay. With your mom, maybe assistant coaching at Grissom?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
It
We'll
almost
go, we'll
happened
go with maybe.
recently, but that's a
Really?
long story.
Okay. Okay. How have you seen the state? You mentioned high schools, like particularly the guys' side of high school boys in this state. How has it changed since you've been in there? And I'll preface that with, I was looking, and if you take away times after 2020, you're the 11th fastest 5K guy. 2020 to 2023, you're 37th now. So like in 3 year span, we've added 26 guys.
Yeah.
Partially that's John Hunt's fault.
Yes.
So, but how have you seen the sport grow from where you were to now?
Gosh, I mean, in Alabama, if
Yeah.
we're speaking in
Alabama.
Alabama specifically, it's insane. I
Yeah.
mean, you have people from Cold Springs, Alabama,
Yep.
running 1440,
Yep.
840,
853.
853.
Yep.
Cold Springs, Alabama. Like,
Yeah.
if anybody's been to Cold Springs, like, that's not a
Where is Cold Springs?
yeah,
You know what I
like
mean?
you're like Coleman, Cold Springs,
Yeah,
like
right.
where is that? So seeing stuff like that,
Yeah.
like you're like, wow, like this sport it's changed. I
Yeah.
mean, back when I was running, you had your Mountain Brook was always superstar. Scottsboro pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you saw a couple of like outlier runners, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you're running 15:30, you're probably like one of the best runners. And now you're running 15:30. If you're like Southern Showcase, like you're gonna get 30th.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or running lanes, RXC.
Yeah, RXC, you're gonna get 100.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's awesome to see though.
Yeah.
Like I think it says a lot about knowledge that has been given. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but like being as a young runner, like you're just trying to see what are these pros doing? Like what's this person doing? What's this person? You're always trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I had a teammate who's really good at researching that stuff. One of your buddies.
Yeah.
And so I'd hear stuff from him, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, this is what Alberto and the boys are doing.
Yeah,
or this is what these people." But now it's easier. You have Strava.
Yeah.
You can see what everybody's doing. I think that is helping a lot, and I love it, man. I love to see these kids just like killing it. Like,
is there a bad side to the Strava world and the data world? Like,
I think it could be. I could see a runner being too into it. But I could see it being too into it, but you're still gonna get fast.
My take on that would be that to you being naive, there is a beauty in being naive and not caring about anything else. I have a friend, and we'll interview her eventually, but like she doesn't care about anything professional running. She just wants to show up and race because she likes it.
Yeah.
But she doesn't care who's on the line. She doesn't nothing, and that's what makes her special with that. So, yeah, but I definitely agree. Like,
I think you're right though. Like that can be tough because, let's say, you're racing, Ethan Edgeworth, right?
Yeah.
Like he's the man.
Yeah.
And you're like let's say you're somebody like me, like you're a 15, like 20s guy, like you're gonna be like, I cannot hang with that person.
Right.
And I experienced this racing actually my sophomore year in high school. I was in like I want to say I was in first or second in at state. But in my mind, I was like, Pat McGregor's in this race.
I can't beat him.
What's happening?
Yeah.
I was like, Pat's in this race. Like, he's going to pass me.
Yeah.
And I was like waiting for him to do that. And then he did.
Yeah.
And
he still might have regardless. Yeah.
He was just faster.
Right.
But I could see that happening to kids, seeing that and being like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just like, but, you know, like when I was running, again, like you're saying, naive, like, you don't know. And you sometimes are able to get a little bit more. But when it comes to training, you just learn so much more. Like, you know, it's
does
a
it
different world.
Does it frustrate you at all? Like in basketball, right? You have the old heads who are like, LeBron's not good, right?
Yeah.
And it's because the game has changed from what they were in, and then they take offense to it. Do you feel that way at all, or is it just more excitement for the next generation?
Again, like I'm competitive.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of every runner today. Every high school runner. I'm like, oh, I wish I had. There are certain runners in town. There was no like one private coaching in Huntsville. And now I think a lot of these fast runners are getting fast, not because of, this is not a knock on any of these high school coaches.
Sure, definitely.
But these runners are getting fast because they're private coaches.
Yeah.
They have somebody who knows running so well. And like me, you, a lot of us runners didn't have that. And if we had that, who knows? Like we could have gotten so much faster.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge change. I wish I had that.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
Like, oh God, you can be so fast.
Yeah. But then at the same time, you've laid, the way I see it at least, you and I have laid the building block, at least in our areas, for future success, right?
Yeah.
Us doing what we did, you're way faster than I was, but like at my school, like I was the first one to do it at my school, right? And then so now that's the goal for people to chase and to ultimately be. Yeah, exactly.
You're the only fast guy at Whitesburg Christian ever, right? You're the fastest of all time.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah,
See,
we don't have
I know this isn't about me, but
I'll edit that out.
I'm sitting here, right
here in the presence of greatness. No, not really. All right, last question. What was the craziest UAH story that you can think of off the top of your head?
I know one for sure. This is a recruiting story.
Okay.
And I'm sure you know college recruiting stories
you can get some weird things. Yeah.
You can get some weird things.
I have to check that this is a kid-friendly YouTube thing. So I'll preface
I'll
that.
definitely college, there were a lot of fast runners we were trying to recruit, and I tried to pride myself on, let's figure out what this runner likes and let's like just give them that experience. Yeah. Let's get them on the team. Right. We had a huge fail once with one of your teammates who was a beast.
Who?
Adam
Jones?
Oh
man,
I wanted him to be my teammate so bad. Yeah. If you're listening to Adam Jones, you're
Adam was incredible. And Adam went on to run at Iowa and ran really well there.
Maybe third. He ran crazy in 5K, which I didn't think he was 5K. Right?
Yeah, he transitioned well.
But regardless, enough. I mean, maybe you can talk to him later. He was awesome. But we would try to recruit kids, and we had this one kid from Tallahassee. They were recruiting. He was like a 4 UHD2 school, so we're not getting the best talent at this time. 420 miler, good, and we had this thing. You always got like money. You got money to
to host them. Yeah.
And the thing, I don't know if it's still a thing at UH, but our thing was we'd spend that money on Krispy Kreme donuts, and like everybody would get together and hang out. You'd all get a ton of Krispy Kreme donuts, and we'd just hang out and chill. Well, after that, we're like, okay, this kid, it's late, we're hanging out and chilling, and he's a pretty cocky kid, and he's thinking that he's faster than us college runners. So we're like taking offense to this. Yeah. And so it's late, and so we sneak into Milton Frank. We jump the fence.
Amazing.
At Milton Frank. It's early in the morning. I'd say late. Now it's early in the morning. Yeah. We go back to the dorm. We get our spikes. I'm injured as I am half the time in college, so I'm just have a stopwatch.
Sure.
And I'm like telling my teammates, like, you guys gotta beat this kid. Like, dude, we can't have this freaking kid talking this mess and beating us.
Right.
So they race a mile there, pitch dark at Milton Frank.
What time?
Nobody finished the mile. Nobody finished it. The furthest thing we went was 3 laps.
Oh god.
And it was super windy and it
Yeah.
was just pitch dark. But the kid he was in last.
Perfect.
So it was the best. He loved it.
Yeah.
He ends up going to UH and it was fun.
We have to know his name.
Taylor Buzzard.
Taylor Buzzard.
Taylor
Yeah.
Buzzard.
That fits Taylor Buzzard's description completely.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, Blaise, thank you so much for your time.
Uh-huh.
I feel like we could talk forever.
Yeah,
but
it's fun.
Last question for real. Who is somebody that we as a track record
Mhm.
should get our hands on and interview them?
I was talking to you earlier,
Yep.
who I think is like a legend, North Alabama, Huntsville runner, Steve Bolt.
Yep.
He is, I mean, he had the mile record for so long. I think it would be so interesting just to talk about his running career and really learn what he did and what a lot of those runners did back then to be so fast.
Right. Okay. Steve Bolt.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks so much for watching. This is Blaise Binns, class of 2011, and UAH class of 2016. Thanks for your time, Blaise. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Woo-wee, that was fun.
Hey.